criminal defense and constitutional attorney Pate joining us now from CNN New York. All right, Paige, so this hearing gets underway in about, I believe, an hour from now. How is this all going to play out? As you know, Michael was saying, this is all going to happen over the telephone. So are the judges sitting there while the arguments are made on speakerphone, essentially?
Basically, yes. It's very unusual for a circuit court of appeals to have oral argument over the telephone, but this is obviously a very unusual case. Normally, these cases will work their way up to the Court of Appeals. You'll have a lot more time to organize the briefs, get everybody together, and schedule an oral argument. In this case, everything is being done very, very fast, and it's highly unusual. But on one side of the speaker, you're going to have the judges, and they may be in different locations because the Court of Appeals in the Ninth Circuit has courthouses not just in San Francisco, but also in Washington and in Oregon as well, and in California. So they may be in different locations. The lawyers, of course, will be on one side of the call, the judges on the other. I expect there will be a lot of back and forth, though, because the judges have reviewed the briefs, and they're going to be well prepared and ready to ask some hard questions.
So, Pate, give us the cliff notes on what arguments we're likely to hear. They're not considering the whole ban, and no court has considered the constitutionality of this. Is that right?
Well, the judges have at least passed on the constitutionality of it. The federal judge in Boston found that the constitutional argument was not strong enough to stop the ban or to place a stay on it and let it continue. The federal judge in Seattle looked at the constitutional arguments, did not give us a very well-defined opinion about his beliefs on the constitutional arguments, but at least addressed them. Now, if anyone who's ever appeared in front of a circuit court of appeals, and I have in several different circuits, what happens at that hearing all depends on what the judges want to talk about. Once the lawyers start talking, the judges will immediately interrupt with questions, and they can take it in any direction they want. But I know the first thing they're going to have to address is, can they even hear this appeal at this point? Normally, before you get to a circuit court of appeals, you have a final decision from a federal district judge, and we don't have a final decision. We just have a temporary restraining order. So the first question out of the box is likely, can this court even consider the case at this juncture?
So there's a chance that this case could even be thrown out. And let me just ask you about what exactly this three-panel judge is going to be deciding on. I mean, we were talking about the constitutionality. You talked about the temporary restraining order. Is that what they're going to be focusing on? Or also the Seattle judge from that district court, and whether or not he had the jurisdiction to make this ruling? I mean, what exactly are they focusing on?
All of those questions will be part of the oral argument. What the judges want to focus on will really depend on what they're thinking. They've read the briefs at this point. They probably have some very specific questions in mind. Maybe the big issue is going to be, can we hear this case now? Maybe the big issue is going to be, do the states have standing? Maybe one or more of the judges want to go ahead and jump into the constitutional arguments. We really don't know until the hearing gets started and we see which direction the questions are going.
And just finally, too, it probably won't end here, will it? There will be an appeal whichever way it goes. Is that your sense? And then it could end up at the Supreme Court, where it could be 4-4, and then this court's decision would prevail. Is that the right read?
Absolutely. Regardless of the decision here, we are not finished with this issue, not by a long shot, because the only thing the Ninth Circuit is really considering is, are we going to keep this stay in place, or are we going to let the administration continue with the ban? So this is temporary relief. And then after that, you would expect a more thorough review of the facts and the constitutional arguments to ultimately decide whether this ban is lawful or unlawful.
Got it. So this ruling will essentially be temporary until the Supreme Court gets its say. That's the way it's turning out to be. That's how we see it. Pate, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us from New York.
Thanks, Pate.